Before cancer, I was a normal college kid. My junior year of spring break is when that all changed. Picture this: extreme stomach pain, night sweats, and the kind of tired that just doesn't go away. As independent as I was, I couldn't help but call my mom to come get me from school. After a week of endless tests, I was sent home from the hospital on antibiotics and told I would be just fine. The next day was Good Friday, although for me, it was not a very good one. The pain became excruciating. I started to have trouble breathing. My stomach was literally growing before our eyes. My dad, who is a physician, fought for my CT scans to be reread. He is one of the only reasons I am still alive today. I had someone that could advocate for me through a system that most kids do not have. We got a call later that day that I needed to head back to the hospital immediately for an exploratory laparoscopy to get some answers. When I woke up from this procedure, all I heard was the word cancer. It is imprinted in my mind. I will never, ever forget that moment. It took me a long time that day and the days that followed to believe that this was real. That Monday, I got the official diagnosis, Burkitt lymphoma. Not just any cancer, the fastest growing cancer possible. My tumors doubled in size every 12 to 24 hours. This means that you can die from this cancer in 5 weeks, and I was at least at week 4. So, my journey began, dark and terrifying. I would be fighting every single day just to stay alive. I was encouraged after my first round of chemo. The tumors were shrinking. But with good news seems to come bad. The breaking down of the tumors caused my kidneys to begin to shut down. I was literally 1 second away from being put on dialysis. Also, I had gained 40 pounds of fluid. As a result, my second cycle of chemo had to be delayed. Unfortunately, stopping the treatment caused the tumors to come back in full force. This changed my prognosis by extending my chemo from 4 months to 8 months. One of the most memorable days for me was when my doctor told me that this only happens 10% of the time with this type of cancer. He coined terms like, "We're gonna have to fight this harder than we thought, and you have to stay positive." I wanted to scream. I felt like I really might not survive this after all. Once my blood counts returned to normal, I started receiving my second round of intensive chemotherapy. Chemo is one of the strongest therapies a person can receive. Children have weaker immune systems than adults, so imagine how dangerous this can be for their little bodies. With my very suppressed immune system, thanks to the treatments, fevers sent me back into the hospital where I discovered that I had a severe internal fungal infection in my liver, lungs, and spleen. Now, I had to battle 2 monsters: the infection and the cancer. The medicine I had to take every day to treat this infection was the worst yet. This medicine caused me to have excruciating back spasms that would leave me screaming. I got to look forward to this pain every single day. Can you imagine? My doctors told me that they had only given this specific medicine 4 other times in their careers. Why? Because the side effects are that crippling. How is a medicine like this the only option for a child? In addition to this infection, I also developed C. diff, which is an intestinal infection caused by taking a lot of antibiotics. It causes severe intestinal dysfunction. I'll spare you the gory details with this one. The fungal infection led to days and nights of constant fevers, often as high as 107 degrees. Yes, I said 107 degrees. Having fevers this high made me have terrifying hallucinations, extreme body aches, chills, and so much more that you can't even imagine. I remember the fevers being so bad that my parents and aunts would have to take turns holding my jaw shut to keep it from chattering. In these moments, I felt like I was barely holding on. All of this led to a 56-day stay in the hospital. I honestly thought I would never get to leave. Many nights, the suffering I was enduring seemed unbearable. I remember thinking that I was ready for God to take me to heaven because I could not live on an earth full of this much pain. To top it all off, during this time, I could not receive chemo because of the infection. This was terrifying. I could not stop imagining the cancer growing back. Since I could not receive chemo, we tried a new treatment that was available, thanks to research: monoclonal antibodies. Basically, with this treatment, they take my blood and put it in a rabbit so that the rabbit will build up the antibodies I need for my specific type of cancer, and then they put the blood back in me. I know it sounds very weird, but it's genius. Monoclonal antibodies are one of the many treatments that foundations like Rally are funding in order to kill cancer while having less short and long-term side effects than chemo. Let me get real with you for a minute. It doesn't matter how many years I'm out of my treatment, I will still be dealing with the side effects for the rest of my life. For instance, infertility. Chemo treatments kill egg and sperm cells. So not only was I told I had cancer, but that the treatments that were supposed to save my life killed my chances of having kids of my own? It just keeps getting better, doesn't it? That's why there has to be a better way. Think about how many children like me will have to hear the same thing. Side effects for children don't stop there. Short-term, including hair loss, fevers, chemo brain, ulcers throughout their entire body, dangerous infections, loss of smell and taste, and so much more. Long-term, such as decreased immune functioning, PTSD, learning disabilities, growth deficiencies, heart and lung problems, and most commonly, secondary cancers. Traumatic events in childhood can affect that child for the rest of their life. Living with cancer and going through these treatments is the epitome of trauma. I still have intrusive flashbacks and nightmares that haunt me. Being a young person with cancer makes it so hard to relate to others, which can be very lonely at times. While many of my classmates' biggest worries were parties and their tests the next day, I was literally fighting to stay alive. One study even showed that younger patients and patients who stay in the hospital for extended periods, like me, have a high chance of developing PTSD. Growing up with a life full of needles, CT scans, and fear is no way to live your childhood. These children will view the world as a dangerous place where nothing is set in stone. While living day in and day out on the pediatric oncology floor, I noticed that every child has a unique battle. Unfortunately, for children fighting cancers and infections like mine, secondary cancers are very common. I still have to get checkups to make sure I do not develop leukemia from the treatments that I received because chemo changes the way that your cells grow. Tell me, how can this be that a treatment like chemo can be the only way to survive while also posing so many additional threats? So why, then, is the research to make it better so underfunded? Why is only 4% of federal funding for cancer research set aside for children? This number still does not make sense to me, and that is why I am here tonight. I will continue to speak up for these precious little ones who don't have anyone to speak up for them like I did. 46 kids are diagnosed with cancer each school day in America. Yes, 46. That is why we are here today. You may be wondering where exactly your money goes, rightfully so. This is why I love this foundation so much, because 92% of every dollar tonight goes straight to our mission. This makes me so proud to support Rally. By funding childhood research, one day when parents have to hear the piercing words that their child has cancer, we can follow that sentence with, and everything will be okay. We have a cure. So what can you do to help? For me, I am telling my story. I could easily have walked away from this life-altering experience and put it behind me. That would have been a lot easier. But instead, I'm studying to be a pediatric oncology nurse. Yeah! Where I can be an advocate and a caretaker for children experiencing what I did. My story is just one example of how early detection and better treatments can help beat cancer. Until we have a cure, I will do everything in my power to fight for children like me. Thank you for joining in the battle with me, and rally on.